My name is Carl Merritt. I'm 58 years old. I live alone in Dayton, Ohio, in the same house I've owned for 31 years. I want to start with the phone call, because that's what you're here for. September 14th, 2:47 in the morning. I was dead asleep when the sound pulled me straight up. I grabbed the phone off the nightstand, looked at the screen, and my heart stopped. The name said Nolan. His contact photo was right there, a picture from his 18th birthday. Smiling, alive, staring back at me from a phone screen in the middle of the night. That number had been disconnected for nearly 19 years. I let it ring, 4 times, 5. On the 6th ring, something inside me gave way and I pressed answer. 3 seconds of silence, then breathing, slow and steady. Someone was there. I tried to say hello, nothing came out. Then Dad, one word, quiet. Scared. I know my son's voice. I heard it every day for 19 years. I heard it in my sleep for 20 years after that. That was him, not a recording, not grief playing tricks. Him actually speaking to me. Dad, where am I? Something's wrong. His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. Someone's been watching me. I don't have much time. Then the line went dead. Call timer, 9 minutes and 43 seconds. I called back immediately. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I tried 15 more times. Same recording every single time. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Now let me back up and tell you how we got here. I buried my son on a Tuesday, November 8th, 2005. Riverside Cemetery under an oak tree near the east fence. Gray granite headstone. Nolan James Merritt, born March 4th, 1986, died November 3rd, 2005. He was 19 years old. A truck ran a red light and hit his car on the driver's side. The officer who called me said it was instant, no suffering. I've never been sure if that was true or if they just say it to make the worst moment of your life slightly easier to survive. Either way, it didn't help much. I drove to the hospital doing 90. I knew before I even got there. When they put you in a private room, you already know. They let me see him. His face was untouched. He looked like he was sleeping. I touched his hand and it was still warm. I stood there for almost 2 hours waiting for his chest to move. It never did. There was paperwork, decisions, the coffin, the plot, the obituary, the flowers. His mother was there, but she couldn't sign anything, couldn't do anything. She collapsed at the funeral. They had to help her out. I did everything alone, every single thing. 3 years later, she and I were divorced. Grief will do that. She remarried eventually, moved to Arizona, built a new life. I don't blame her for any of it. People survive differently. I couldn't start over. I kept Nolan's room exactly the way he left it. His clothes still hung in the closet. His books sat on the shelf, and his phone number, I kept it in my contacts. The number was disconnected in March 2006, but I kept paying $30 a month just to hold it in my account. People thought I was out of my mind. Maybe I was. But deleting it felt like losing him a second time, and I wasn't willing to do that. Every Sunday, no matter the weather, rain, snow, 95-degree Ohio heat, I drove to Riverside Cemetery and sat by his grave. I talked to him, told him about my week, told him things I couldn't say to anyone else. My daughter Patrice came around when she could. She lives in Columbus now with her husband, Brent Aldridge. He's a civil attorney, sharp dresser, always with an answer ready. They got married in 2011, about 6 years after Nolan died. I walked her down the aisle. I tried to be happy that day, and mostly I was. Life moved forward around me. I'm not sure it moved forward for me. I learned to function inside the emptiness. You don't get over losing a child, you just learn where the holes are so you don't fall into them every single day. Then that phone rang. 4 days after the first call at 3:15 in the morning, it rang again. I answered before the first ring finished. He sounded worse this time. Exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days, but he had something he didn't have before, an address. He'd found a piece of mail inside whatever building he was in. 4247 Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia, he said. I wrote it down. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely read my own handwriting. I'll be there in 8 hours, I said. Stay where you are. The line went dead again. I threw clothes in a bag, told nobody where I was going, and drove straight through. No stops except gas. I made the 8-hour drive in 7 and 12. The building was condemned. I found it on the east side of Moorfield, a 4-story red brick block that looked like it had been standing since the 1970s and hadn't been cared for since the 1980s. Orange signs zip-tied to the chain-link fence, boarded windows on the ground floor, a padlock and chain on the front door, a demolition notice dated 6 weeks out. I sat in my car across the street for 10 minutes just staring at it. This was wrong, had to be wrong, but I checked my notes 3 times and the address matched. This was 42047 Riverside Avenue. I got out and walked the perimeter, found a hole in the fence near the back corner, found a side entrance with a broken lock, pushed the door open. It creaked loud enough to make me freeze for a full 10 seconds. Nothing moved inside. I turned on my phone flashlight and went in. The smell hit me first, mold and rot and stale air that hadn't moved in years. Peeling wallpaper, stained carpet, graffiti on the walls every few feet. Apartment doors hung open on both sides of the hallway, each one showing the same picture inside. Broken furniture, trash on the floors, evidence of squatters and time and neglect. The place had been empty for years, maybe longer. I checked every unit on the ground floor. Nothing. Climbed to the second floor. More of the same. Third floor, same thing. Doors hanging open, decay, silence. Then I saw apartment 8. It was at the end of the third floor hallway. Every other door in that building was damaged in some way, warped or hanging off its hinges or missing entirely. This one was fully closed. The brass number 8 on the door looked polished, clean, like someone had wiped it down that morning. I stood in front of it for a full minute. I turned the handle, unlocked. The door swung open smoothly without a sound. I stepped inside and stopped breathing. The apartment was perfect. While everything else in that building was rotting, this place looked like someone lived here. Walls painted soft blue with no water stains, no peeling. Carpet with vacuum lines still fresh in it. The air smelled like soap and coffee, not mold. A brown couch, a coffee table, a TV on a stand. Everything arranged like a normal living room, and on the walls, photographs. I walked closer and my vision blurred. Our family, me and Nolan and his mother. His first day of kindergarten, his 10th birthday party, Christmas morning when he was 12, his high school graduation. I had copies of these exact photos at my house in Dayton, framed on my own walls. But here they were in a condemned building in West Virginia. Clean glass, no dust hung recently. And then there were photos I had never seen, photos that could not exist. Nolan in his 20s, Nolan in his 30s, Nolan standing in a college graduation gown in front of a building I didn't recognize. Nolan at a restaurant with friends, Nolan standing right outside this apartment building, smiling at the camera, looking maybe 35 years old. I took pictures of everything. My hands shook so badly most of them came out blurry. In the kitchen, a coffee mug sat on the counter with brown liquid still in the bottom, slightly warm when I touched it. The refrigerator had food inside. Milk with an expiration date 5 days out. Leftovers in containers. Someone was eating here. Someone was living here in a building the city had written off. On the refrigerator door held by a magnet was a note, handwritten on lined paper. I recognized the handwriting before I read a single word. Nolan's handwriting, the same messy scrawl he'd had since middle school. I had birthday cards in a box at home in that exact handwriting. I pulled the note off the fridge. Dad, I woke up here 3 weeks ago with no memory of how I got here. I have ID that says my name is Lenny Shaw. I'm 38 years old. I work at a factory. I have an apartment and a life I don't remember living, but it's not my life. I remember being Nolan. I remember you. I remember the accident. I felt the impact. I felt everything stop. Then I woke up here as someone else. Please help me figure out what happened. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my jacket pocket. I kept searching. Nightstand drawer, a plain white envelope unsealed. Inside was a photograph. My son-in-law, Brent Aldridge, standing next to a man I had never seen before. But something about that face made the floor feel unsteady beneath me. Same eyes, same shape of the jaw, same slight scar on the chin from a bike accident. When Nolan was 7 years old, I had watched him get that scar. I drove him to urgent care and held his hand while they cleaned the wound. The man standing next to Brent was Nolan, 20 years older. But Nolan, a timestamp printed on the photo border, 3 years ago. On the back, written in pencil so faint I had to tilt it toward the window light. This man knows who I am. He told me not to contact family. I sat down on the kitchen floor. Brent knew my daughter's husband had known for 3 years that my son was alive. He had looked me in the eye at family dinners and holiday gatherings and said nothing. He had watched me grieve and said nothing. I sat on that floor for a long time before I got up. I drove to County General Hospital the next morning. Same building I had walked into 20 years ago when an officer told me my son was gone. Same parking lot, same automatic doors. Walking through them felt like stepping back into a nightmare I thought I had survived. I asked for the neurologist on record for a John Doe admitted November 3, 2005. After some back and forth at the front desk, I was pointed to Dr. Gloria Marsh. She met me in a small office on the 3rd floor. Gray hair pulled back, tight, tired eyes, a stack of folders already open on her desk. She had clearly been up early pulling records. She told me she remembered the case. On November 3, 2005, 2 patients were admitted from the same intersection within 6 minutes of each other. Patient A arrived at 11:52 p.m., critical condition. Massive head trauma, pronounced dead at 12:17 a.m. That was the body I identified as Nolan. Patient B arrived at 11:58 p.m., also critical, also severe head trauma, but stable enough for emergency surgery. He survived 7 hours of surgery and fell into a coma. When he woke up 6 days later, he had complete retrograde amnesia. No memory of anything before the accident, no ID had been found at the scene. He became their John Doe. Same blood type as Nolan, same approximate age. In the chaos of that night, with 2 young men arriving minutes apart with nearly identical injuries, the intake process broke down. Charts were not properly verified. And when I walked into that hospital at midnight, shaking, already told my son was dead, I looked at a face and I nodded. I never questioned it. In that state, in that room, I confirmed what I had already been told. Dr. Marsh said it quietly, but she said it. It was possible that I identified the wrong body. She handed me a DNA test kit, a sterile swab in a sealed plastic bag. Get her a sample, and she would have results in 48 hours. I took the kit and left. Before I went to the factory that night, I made one more stop. I called my attorney, not the one who had handled my estate paperwork for years. Someone new, someone Brent had never met. I told him I needed to update my will immediately, and that it needed to stay completely private until I said otherwise. He met me at his office that afternoon. When I walked out 2 hours later, Brent Aldridge's name appeared nowhere in any document connected to my estate. Patrice was protected directly. Whatever Brent had been counting on was gone, and he didn't know it yet. I want to explain what I understood by then because it matters. Years ago, after Nolan died, I had signed a temporary estate document, standard language. If I passed while my affairs were still unsettled, the bulk of my assets would go to Patrice as my only surviving child. Brent knew this. He was an attorney. Reading documents like that was his job. And if Nolan came back, if it turned out my son had been alive all along, that document would have needed to be renegotiated. Nolan would have had a claim. Brent's share of what Patrice stood to inherit would have shrunk considerably. 3 years ago, Brent had gone to Moorfield on what I later confirmed was a bar association conference in the county. He ended up at a local bar. He sat across from a man named Lenny Shaw for 47 minutes, a man with my son's eyes and my son's scar on his chin. And whatever he figured out in those 47 minutes, he kept entirely to himself. That was what I was sitting with when I drove to Moorfield Manufacturing that night. I got there at 10:45 and parked where I could see the entrance. Workers came in for the night shift in 1s and 2s, men in jeans and work boots carrying thermoses and lunch bags. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. I had the driver's license photo from the apartment, a little blurry, and the photograph with Brent. Neither was enough to pick someone out of a dark parking lot. At 10:52, a silver Honda pulled in and parked 3 spaces away from me. A man got out, tall, maybe 6'1", brown jacket, backpack over one shoulder. He reached back into the car for something, then turned toward the entrance. The way he moved stopped me cold, the slight slouch in his shoulders. The particular rhythm of his walk, I had watched that walk cross my driveway and down the hallway of my house 10,000 times. He stepped under the entrance lights and I saw his face clearly. Older, lines at the corners of his eyes, a heavier jaw. 20 years of living written across features I would know anywhere. Same nose, same shape of the mouth, and on his chin, faded but there, the scar. I got out of my car, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I stood in that parking lot and I cried, not quiet tears. The kind that come up from somewhere you keep locked most of the time. I stood there in the dark and I let it happen, because there was nothing else I could do. My son was 38 years old and alive and walking into a factory for the night shift, and he had no idea who he was. When I pulled myself together, I followed him inside to wait for the break. At 2:15 in the morning, workers started coming out for their break. Small groups, men standing around with coffee and cigarettes talking in low voices. I waited near the edge of the lot, far enough back that I wasn't obvious, but close enough to see faces. Then he came out alone. He walked to the far end of the parking lot away from the others and leaned against the fence. Looked up at the sky for a while, just standing there by himself, the way some people do when they need a few minutes away from everything. I walked toward him. Every step felt like it took more effort than it should have. When I got to about 20 feet away, he noticed me and turned. We looked at each other. I saw the confusion cross his face first, then something else underneath it, something harder to name, like a word you can't quite remember, but you know it's there. "Can I help you?" he said. His voice was deeper than I remembered, rougher from years of use, but the same voice. "You just look like someone I used to know." I said, "Sorry to bother you." He studied my face. "That's strange. You look familiar too. I can't figure out why." I told him my name was Pete, kept it at that. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, "This is going to sound crazy, but I've been having these dreams lately. Really vivid ones. There's a man in them, older guy, always watching me, always looks like he's carrying something heavy. In the dreams, I think he's supposed to be my father." He paused. "He looks like you." I kept my face as steady as I could. "What do the dreams feel like?" "Like they're about someone else's life," he said. "But they feel more real than most things I actually remember." He pulled out his phone, turned the screen toward me. 3 weeks ago, I woke up and found this in my notes. I don't remember writing it. The Notes app was open. The same line filled the entire screen, top to bottom, repeated until it ran out of space. "I'm Nolan, I'm Nolan, I'm Nolan. That's my handwriting," he said. "But I don't know anyone named Nolan." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the DNA kit. My hands were not steady. I don't think they had been steady in 4 days. "I need you to trust me for about 10 seconds, I said. "Let me take a cheek swab. If I'm wrong about what I think, you walk back inside and you never see me again. But if I'm right, you deserve to know the truth." He looked at the kit, looked at me. A long moment passed. Then he opened his mouth. I swabbed the inside of his cheek for 10 seconds, sealed it in the tube, put it in my pocket. He stood there watching me like he was waiting for something to make sense. "How long until you know?" he said. 48 hours. "There's a doctor at County General running it." He nodded slowly. Then he said, "In those dreams, the man I told you about, the one who looks like you, people around him are always saying a name, same name over and over." He stopped. "What name?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Nolan," he said quietly. I told him I would be in touch. I gave him my real number and told him to save it. He looked at his phone for a second and then looked back up at me. "Whatever this is," he said, "I want to know. I've spent my whole life not knowing who I was before the accident. If you have an answer, I want it." Even if it's hard, I drove back to the apartment and I stayed there. While I waited on the DNA results, I did not sit still. The next morning, I called a private investigator in Moorfield, a woman who had been recommended to me by my new attorney. I told her what I needed. Within 5 days, she confirmed that Brent Aldridge had made 3 trips to Moorfield over the past 5 years, each time staying at a motel less than 2 miles from Moorfield Manufacturing. She had the dates, the receipts, and the motel check-in records. I contacted a digital forensic specialist that Dr. Marsh had referred me to. Brent had deleted a series of text messages from an old number registered to a prepaid phone. Deleted does not mean gone. The specialist pulled them. One message sent to Lenny Shaw's number reads, "Stay where you are. Don't reach out to anyone. This is better for everyone." That was Brent's voice. That was exactly how he talked. Short sentences, no room for argument, delivered like they were doing you a favor. The bar in the photograph still had old security footage stored on a hard drive the owner had never gotten around to clearing. I drove over, explained what I was looking for, and he let me sit in the back and watch. 47 minutes of footage, Brent doing most of the talking. Lenny, who was Nolan, sitting across from him, looking uncertain and small. At one point, Brent put a hand on the table between them in a way that was not friendly, more like a door closing. I had the investigator pull a certified copy of the footage. Then I went back to the apartment and waited for Dr. Marsh to call. Dr. Marsh called on a Thursday morning. I was sitting on Nolan's couch in that quiet blue apartment when the phone rang. I looked at the screen for a few seconds before I answered. I had been waiting 48 hours for this call, and now that it was here, I was not sure I was ready for it. I answered. "Mr. Merritt," she said. Her voice was careful in a way that told me she already knew what she was about to say was going to change things. "Sit down if you aren't already. Tell me," I said. "It's a match. Lenny Shaw is your son. Nolan is alive." I don't remember exactly what I said after that. I think I thanked her. I think I asked her to send the official documentation to my attorney. Then I set the phone down on the coffee table and sat in that apartment without moving for a long time. My son was alive. He had been alive for 20 years. He had been living 2 states away under a name he picked for himself because no one ever came to claim him. He had built a job and a routine and a life from nothing, with no memory of who he was or where he came from. And the whole time, I had been driving to a cemetery every Sunday to sit next to a headstone with his name on it. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "It's positive." I said, "The DNA. You're Nolan. You're my son." A long silence, then I heard him cry, not quiet tears. The kind that come from somewhere deep that has been sealed off for a long time. I cried too. We stayed on the phone like that for a while, neither of us saying much, just breathing and trying to hold on to something that felt too large to hold. "I don't know how to be him," he said finally. "I don't remember being him." "Then we start from where we are," I said. "That's enough." We met at a diner 2 hours later. I got there first and took a booth by the window. When he walked in and saw me, he stopped in the doorway for a moment. Then he came over and sat down across from me. I talked for a long time, his first words, the blue bicycle he got for his 9th birthday, The time he broke his arm falling out of the oak tree in our backyard and tried to convince me he was fine all the way to the emergency room. His high school graduation, how he shook the principal's hand and looked out at the crowd and found my face first. I told him all of it. He listened to everything like he was hearing about a stranger. Maybe he was, but twice, just twice, something I said made his eyes go still and distant for a moment. Like a door somewhere inside him moved without opening all the way. Before we left, he reached across the table and put his hand over mine. His hand was bigger than I remembered, rougher. "I'm sorry you did all of that alone," he said. "None of it was your fault," I said. "Not a single part of it." The following Monday, I filed everything. My attorney submitted the full evidence package simultaneously to the Ohio State Bar Association and the Moorfield Police Department, the hotel receipts, the recovered text messages, the bar security footage, the certified DNA results, all of it organized and documented, handed to the people whose job it was to do something about it. Within 3 weeks, Brent's law license was suspended pending a formal disciplinary investigation. Moorfield PD opened a file on his contact with an amnesia patient and his decision to stay silent. A civil fraud inquiry was opened related to his conduct involving the estate. I sat down with Patrice on a Sunday afternoon and I showed her everything. I put it all on the table in front of her and I let her read at her own pace. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there with the papers in her hands. Then she made her own calls. She filed for divorce 8 days later. Brent never contacted me. Not to explain, not to apologize, nothing. I did not expect him to. The body buried in Nolan's grave was identified through DNA testing as Floyd Tanner, 19 years old. No family on record, no missing persons report ever filed. He had been in the wrong place on the worst night of both our lives. I had him moved to a proper grave with his real name cut into the stone. He deserved that. He deserved to be known. Nolan's number has not called again. Whatever happened on September 14th at 2:47 in the morning, whatever it was that reached across 20 years and rang a disconnected phone, it stopped the moment we found each other. I don't have an explanation for it. I stopped looking for one. We meet at the diner every Sunday now, same time I used to spend at the cemetery. Some weeks he asks questions about his childhood. Some weeks we just drink coffee and talk about nothing in particular. He is figuring out who he is. I'm figuring out who we are now. It takes time. We have time. If you're carrying something tonight that feels too heavy to put down, I want you to hear this. Keep going. Don't let anyone tell you that what you know in your gut isn't real. I was told for 20 years to move on, to let go, to accept it. I never did. And my son is alive because I didn't. Trust what you know, do the work. The truth doesn't disappear just because nobody else is looking for it.